Hello friends, welcome back to Program with Akshay, and this is the part 2 of AWS Step Functions. In the previous part, we have seen the introduction about AWS Step Function. You can refer the previous video, the introduction video of AWS Step Function. Okay, so what are the prerequisites? What are the objectives? How we are going to see how we are how the roadmap for the AWS Step Function. Okay, so in this video, we are going to see what is Step Function, why we are using AWS Step Functions, and what are the benefits of AWS Step Functions. Okay, also we will see some examples of AWS Step Functions which are provided by AWS and also the pricing model. So let's start. What is AWS Step Functions? As the definition says, the AWS Step Functions are built with visual workflows that helps businesses to orchestrate with other AWS services. So, what are visual workflows? Assume that a normal workflow which takes an input and it produces an output. For example, you are logging into an application. If your username and password is valid, if it is a yes, it will redirect to the portal. If it is a no, that means your password or username is invalid, it will give you an error message saying that your username and password is not valid and it will redirect to a login page. So that is nothing but a workflow. Okay, so step functions are built with visual workflows that helps the businesses. Okay, with the help of AWS step functions, you can integrate with other AWS services. We will see in the upcoming videos or upcoming sessions how we can integrate AWS step functions with other AWS services. Okay, now now, AWS Step Functions allows to add a workflow quickly. That means if you wanted to add another workflow in between, like suppose a check with when the username and the password, you need to add a captcha workflow. Okay, so you can add that workflow with the help of AWS Step Functions with a minimum code and minimum effort. Okay, with this workflow, obviously you can do error handling, state management, security, and the most important thing, minimal code. Okay. So in the AWS CDK, we have seen a lot of coding with TypeScript. Okay. Where in AWS step function, we require minimal code efforts. Okay. So with step functions, you can do error handling. Okay. Like a try catch block, you can say that. State management, you can preserve the state of this workflows in AWS step functions. Security, which is very important part, for any in the AWS CDK, we have seen for any lambda to execute or to any lambda to read the data from the DynamoDB or from the S3 bucket, we need to attach the IAM policies. Similarly, for AWS step functions, we need those permissions, we need those security settings. Okay, step functions are mostly based on state machines and tasks. Okay, we will see in the upcoming slide what are the state machines and tasks. As I said in the previous slides, the example, like if like there is a username and password which is trying to log in into the portal. If the username matches and the password matches, it will allow to access to the portal. Otherwise it will be given, or it will be denied, and it will be redirected to the login portal saying that your username and the password is not valid. So that is why we are using step functions, where we can create the workflows. Okay, now the next question arises, why we should use step functions. Okay, so the step functions are like, as we have seen an event-driven architecture in AWS CDK, we can decouple each and every services. Okay, that means if one lambda functions call another lambda, then you can couple those into the AWS step functions. Okay, that means we can group into the parallel states of the both lambdas and we can decouple them. So decoupled architecture. Okay, that is one of the reasons why we are using AWS step functions. Okay, managing. Okay, it's like if there are like thousands of lambdas which needs to be like managed. Okay, so there can be managing can be very difficult. Okay, so especially in a distributed system, so managing is very easy in terms of AWS step function. Okay, divide and conquer, like if we are working in a team. Okay, then the individual lambda functions or microservices, whatever you wanted to call them, can be owned by a person or by a development team, and orchestration can be owned by another team. Okay, so as long as we agree on a design, everyone can work independently. That means if you have a dev team and if you have a DevOps team, okay, dev team is responsible for creating those Lambda functions and executing those Lambda functions. DevOps team is responsible for orchestrating those Lambda functions. Okay, so with the help of AWS Step Functions, you can create a design, you can create a roadmap, and you can divide and conquer easily. Okay, that means orchestration of Lambda functions can be done easily with the help of AWS Step Functions. Okay, now, the most important point, very minimal code, or you can say no code. You can make changes to the step function like call lambdas, call ECS, call S3 bucket without any code changes. Okay, that means this is very efficient when in terms of in terms of changes. Okay, in terms of productivity. Okay, audit. Yes, you can have step functions. There is a record of it. That means we set input and the outputs are produced. Okay, so auditability is very much very much provided with the help of AWS step functions. Obviously you can do auditing with the help of AWS X-rays, okay, like how the past executions have happened in this AWS step functions. So this is why we are using step functions. So we have seen what is step function and why we are using step functions. Now what are the benefits step functions provide? We will see in the upcoming slides. So the benefits are build and deployment is much more faster. You can easily drag and drop and create easily event driven workflows. Okay, very less code. Then a scalability and reliability. Okay, that means we can easily scale our applications, and we can easily rely our reliability is another factor where we can provide security settings. Okay, scalability, like if there are multiple instances of Lambda we need to call, we can do that with the help of AWS step functions. So scalability is one of the factor. Deployment is much more faster. Okay, now if you see we create a code, commit code pipeline and code deploy. In this case, the deployment of AWS step functions is very much faster. Orchestration of microservices, this is a very important point. That means a simplified way of orchestration. That means if we have to orchestrate between more than two services or more than one services in AWS, it is much more efficient and much more faster as compared to any other providers. So these are the benefits of AWS step functions. Now we will see the example of AWS step function. So this is a sample example which I have taken from AWS documentation of AWS step functions. Okay. Now we will see this is the starting point of AWS step functions. Okay. That means assume that this is the starting point of your application. Okay. So this will start there are two lambdas. First lambda is going to do the validation for checking the name, and another lambda is doing the validation for checking the address, and this lambdas are running in a parallel states. Okay, so this lambda is independent running, this lambda is independent running. Okay, and we have something called as another lambda. Okay, that means something open a new account. Okay, now when a user tries to log in into the application, he will first check the name. Okay, and he will check the address. Okay, after checking the name and checking the address, then the parallel states will be called. Okay, then this parallel states, okay, that means the first lambda will be called and he will check the name, the second lambda will be called and he will check the address. Once this is true, it will give a notification. In this case we don't have any notification. He will pass a message to another lambda that you can create and open a new account, and he will be redirected to the portal, and this is the end of our step function. Okay, so this is the start of our step function and this is the end of our step function. In between we have something called as two lambdas which are running parallelly. Okay, so these are nothing but end states which parallel execution is happening. That means check name and check address. If you try to recollect in AWS CDK masterclass, we used to do the check name and check address and open a new account in the same lambda. Okay, now this is how we segregated in each and every architecture in different lambdas. So first we'll check the name, second we'll check the address, and this is running in the parallel streets. If it is true, it will give a notification to another lambda and it will open a new account. If it is a false, it will roll back and saying that your address and name is not validated, and this will end the state. Okay, so this is how the execution of AWS step functions. We will see another example. Okay, where we are combining Lambda functions with human approval. Again, I have taken this example from AWS documentation. You can find this example in the AWS documentation. Okay. Now here again, similar example where this is the starting point of our AWS step functions. These are the parallel states, okay, where the first lambda is checking the name and the second lambda is checking the address. Okay. Now after this parallel state is true, then it will send a notification to an admin, okay, through which service and SNS. So you need to subscribe to an SNS topic. Okay. After the approval, it will go to the approval lambda. If the admin has rejected the notification, it will go to the rejection lambda. Okay. And this will end our AWS step function. So the flow is we are entering into the AWS step function, where this is the starting point of the AWS step function. Then it will check the name, it will check the address. If it is true, okay, it will notify to the admin with the help of AWS SNS. And if the admin has approved the request, it will go to the approve application AWS lambda. If it has denied the request, then it will go to the reject AWS lambda, and this will end. Okay. Now if this parallel state is returning false, that means either check name and check address is not valid, it will directly go to the end state. Okay. So this is how a step function is performing, and these are nothing but your workflows. Okay. So we will see what are exactly these parallel states and tasks, okay, in the upcoming slides. So these are the building blocks of AWS. Okay, so step functions are nothing but state machines, and tasks which nothing but takes input and produces output. Okay, now you can see a Power BI, okay, a Power BI application. In the Power BI application, like you specify the input and it generates the output in a dashboard. Similarly, for AWS step functions, like we have the seen in the previous example, so these are like check username. Okay, so check username is one task, is valid is another task, if it is not valid is another task, if it is a valid then redirect to the portal, success this is another task, and fail and this is another task. So tasks are nothing but series of events, okay, that is responsible for executing and passing. If it is a true, then passing to another task. And this whole architecture are nothing but state machines. So this whole example is nothing but our state machines. Okay. So these are tasks, that means an series of events. So check username is one task, is valid in another task number 2, not valid is task number 3, then success redirected to the portal is task number 4, and fail if it is not valid is task number 5. And this whole architecture or this whole workflow are called as state machines. So these are the building blocks of AWS step functions. Now the most important part, the pricing model of AWS step functions. So these are the pricing model of AWS step functions. So we are giving free tier. That means we can execute 4,000 state transitions. Okay, this pricing model is being taken from AWS documentation site. And these are the step functions. That means we create an AWS account, a 12-month AWS free tier account, and is available to both existing and the new customers. Okay, that means we can execute 4,000 straight transitions per month. Okay, after that we are being charged like 0.000025 per transition thereafter. That means 0.025 per thousand straight transitions. Okay, so this is how a pricing model of AWS step functions work. Okay, if I assume if you are running that the state transition 4,000 state transitions, you will be charged almost $8 to $9. Okay, approx on your regions. Okay, that means if you are using a US East one or US West one, you will be charged $8 to $9. Okay, that means 4,000 state transitions. Okay, so make sure once you're performing an demo of this AWS step functions, you delete that state machines. Okay, so that you won't be get charged. Okay, now so this is how the charges for the AWS step functions work. Okay, So this screenshot I have taken from the documentation of AWS documentation for AWS Step Functions. So this is the workflow. This is the sample workflow. That this is the start. Okay, this is upload raw file, delete raw file, and end. Okay, so these has four transition states. Okay, that means if the first transition state is start, second transition state is upload raw file, third transition state is delete raw file, and the fourth transition state is end. Okay, now the how the charges will be applied to our account. Okay, so the price per transition in US East North Virginia is 0.00025. Okay, that means we have seen in the previous slide, and the free tier provides 4,000 state transition per month. If you execute this state machine 1 lakh times, okay, that means during 1 month, so without any retries due to error, you have to pay. That means we have four transition states. Okay, that means 4 multiplied by our 1 lakh rupees. That means we will get 4 lakh 4 lakhs. Okay, so the total state transition minus free state transitions. That means 4 lakh minus 4,000, which the AWS provides for the free tier. That means 3,96,000. So the monthly charges, that means 3,96,000 multiplied by 0.00025. That means $9 approximate, including taxes, if I'm not wrong. Okay, so don't quote me on that. So you will be charged almost $8 to $9 per month. If your this is assuming this is the step function, and it has four transitions, and it will be run for a month. Okay, that means you will be charged for almost $9 to $10. Okay, so make sure if you are practicing this video, you do delete this step function. Maybe it is a sample hello world, or a project. Okay, you start, you do a hands-on, and you delete the resources. So this is the ideal way of doing the hands-on on AWS account, so that you won't be get charged. Okay, so this is all about AWS step functions. In this part, we have seen what is AWS step function, why we are using AWS step functions, what are the benefits of AWS step functions, what are states and what are tasks. We have seen the sample example which are being provided by AWS, and we have seen the pricing model of AWS step functions. So we have covered almost all the fundamentals of AWS step functions. In the previous video, we have seen the fundamentals. In this video, we have seen the whats and the whys and the benefits of AWS step functions, and also the pricing model. In the upcoming session, or in the upcoming video, we are going to create our first AWS step function through console. Okay, so stay tuned guys to this AWS step functions masterclass. And if you found this video really helpful, do share with your friends, and do like the video, and do subscribe to the channel. So stay tuned to the upcoming sessions of this masterclass, and happy learning. See you in the next video. Bye.